Okay, I'm here with Brett Morgen, the hotshot director, Mr. Opening Night of the Sundance Film Festival. I'm lucky to have him here. We do have a history together. Can you tell?
Am I going to explain to you our history?
Yeah. Well, you can
explain to the
that.
viewers.
All right.
Reed was my publicist when I first came to Sundance in 1999, when I was really wet behind the ears, and I drove him crazy because, and Reed, it was a very interesting thing because when you come to Sundance, I mean, and this is a great conversation to actually have, the difference between coming as a film and documentary competition versus opening night. It's night and day what happens. I mean, when you're here as a 21st time filmmaker in a documentary competition, you're scratching and clawing to get whatever you can, and you don't understand the big picture that it's really not what happens here but down the road. You understood that, and I didn't understand that, so I drove you crazy, demanding, why aren't we doing here, why aren't we doing here, why aren't we doing here? And the other night when I was doing the press line for opening night, and one of the journalists was asking me something about being opening night, and they said, what's the difference? And I said, well, you guys weren't here when I was here when my first film. I would, have to fight and claw to get any of you to my screening. Now it's like I go to the press line, I walk down to go to a party the other day. This guy had these 8x10 glossies he wanted me to sign. It's like a totally different, ridiculous experience. But Reed is, I've known Reed now for 8 years, and the thing about Reed is he's got an incredible taste in film, and was really the reason On the Ropes got nominated for an Academy Award. I mean, I think if you didn't do the effort you did on that film, there's no way that film would have got nominated, and there's no way I'd be here right now.
But enough about me. Actually, if you want to go on about me further...
No, that's enough.
All right. When you were here before, there was like a chick involved with the film too, wasn't I? I saw in your bio there was like this other...
Nanette, we stopped working together a few years ago.
That's the one.
Yeah. We stopped working together a few years ago. So, and look what happened. I got opening night. You want to get some gossip, Reed?
No.
Are you fishing for some gossip?
No, it's okay.
Do you want to know why we don't work together?
Okay.
No, I don't know. I don't know where you... No, you know what? It's co-direct. I mean, you know me. I'm fairly opinionated, and if you know me, you would probably think it's bizarre that I ever...
I was there and you weren't, because I've been tear gas and I've been in demonstrations and stuff.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is, do you think that the festival catalog said that they were scapegoats? Didn't those guys organize the demonstration? Didn't they? Demonstration happened because of people like Tom Hayden and
the riots did. I mean, the police riots the riots in Chicago were not riots; they were police riots. The police went berserk. The protesters did not attack the police, and the government wanted to hold someone accountable for the riots in Chicago. And so what they did was they took the 8 leaders of the anti-war movement, as Jared Rubin so poignantly says in the film. Bobby Seale had nothing to do with Chicago. He was in there basically for a half a day. And I love Jerry's line. The government believed in integration. So what better thing? And they basically put Bobby Seale in there to scare the shit out of middle-class white parents. Trying to associate the Abby Hoffmans with the Black Panthers.
Do you really think, do you know the concept of confrontation politics?
Yeah, go ahead.
Where the whole idea of something is you go in knowingly want to get a reaction from police, so they're not innocent if that's...
No, that's true. As Norman Mailer says in my film, Jerry Rubin basically said, hey, listen, all we got to do is show up and make funny faces, and they're going to go berserk. And so Jerry, I believe Jerry definitely wanted the riots to happen. It was an epic piece of theater. Really, that's what it was. The movie, there's a subtext of the movie, which is the whole thing was this piece of theater, and everyone is playing their roles. Abby Hoffman says it early on in the film. And he says that exact line. He's all piece of theater. If the cops want to come and beat our heads, the cops come and beat our heads. If the kids want to get high, the kids will get high. We're all going to play our roles. And then you have that scene in the film, the cops and demonstrators, where you see that everyone is sort of playing these roles. And the problem in the courtroom is everyone is locked into their roles, both the defendants and the prosecution.
But I still think that they are very disingenuous about the idea that it was the police riot. I think it was sort of engineered, and it's not something that only happened in Chicago. It happened all over the country repeatedly.
But to say that the protesters were responsible, Jerry just said all we have to do is show up and they'll
not the protesters, the leaders.
But should they have not have shown up? So that it's not their fault the police came in with tear gas. That was not called for. You know, I honestly...
Daily Chicago, my brother.
No, I know, but listen, Daly could have given them permits and everything would have been fine. But clearly that was not the case, and Daly wasn't going to let that happen. So, yeah, I think that, you know, I think each of the defendants had a different take on the thing. I don't think Dellinger at all wanted to, you know, was interested in the sort of theatrical experience in Chicago. Clearly Jerry, who's an anarchist, and to a lesser extent Abby. But, you know, we have in the Walker Report, they talk about Abby urging people to get out of the park and avoid the conflict. And in fact, Abby or Jerry were never present during those riots. And from all accounts, everyone I spoke to, Abby would sit on the, you know, was completely on the sidelines of that. But there's a scene in the movie where a woman named Marilyn Dahl testifies that Abby was telling people to stay in the park, which completely contradicts the Walker Report's testimony, which is why I added that animation scene, because we now have footage of Abby, you know, actually saying it on film, where he said, hey, if the cops want the park, let them have the park. Who gives a shit? I find Judge Hoffman to be a great metaphor for some of the criticism of the film, and people trying to, you know, hold on to this, you know, sacred sort of, you know, history and this sort of decorum, and are unwilling to allow a new generation to express themselves. And if anyone had seen the Kid Stays in the Picture, they should have known exactly what to expect in Chicago 10. I mean, the Kid Stays in the Picture is not a traditional documentary; it's an experience. And I think that's what I've created in this film, and I think that those who understand that and can go into the film with that mindset have really embraced and loved this movie. And I think that the few people who feel that it's disrespecting the history by not providing a deeper contextual framework are missing the point. I wanted to introduce something unique to this canon of history, which was something experiential, something that would give you the flavor and the energy, capture the energy and the attitude of the movement, without being beholden to this sort of academic history. And I also felt in trying to make a film that would reach kids, that it would just alienate them to have all these names sort of flying by them, you know, this history that they don't even know and aren't going to get in a soundbite. It would really sort of trivialize the history, for one, confuse the younger audience. And what I find so interesting in the film is I was on a panel the other day about the movie with Todd Gitlin and Paul Krauser and Julian Temple, a bunch of other people from that era. And some of the audience members would raise their hand and say, I loved your movie, I was there, but why didn't you put Phil Oakes in the film? And another woman said, I loved your movie, blah, 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 why didn't you put McCarthy in the film? I was like, well, why did you need me to put McCarthy in? You already knew about it. And as I was leaving the screening, this kid came up to me and goes, dude, I don't know who this Phil Oakes guy is or this McCarthy man, but your fucking film rocks, bro. And
well, I thought when you're doing the Evans picture, you were a little bit beguiled by Evans. You sort of really got under his sway, and I see now that you're doing this film, you got long hair. Did this movie have the same impact on you?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm like practice intensive immersion with my subjects, and I mean, you know, when I did On the Ropes, I had to, you know, it was a different vibe altogether, man. So that's how I make films. I'm like, put it all out there, and I celebrate the characters in my movies. I mean, I'm not going to spend 3 years of my life working on it, or 5 years of my life working with someone or a subject that, you know, that doesn't inspire me. And the thing about my movies is I don't try to make movies about subjects. I try to make movies that sort of personify the subject. So The Kid Stays in the Picture isn't so much a film about Robert Evans as much as it's a film that is Robert Evans. That's sort of the embodiment of him. I try to direct that film as if Bob were directing the film, so you can totally get inside his head. And the similar thing with Chicago 10 is I adapted the film from the yippee sensibility. And I think if audiences, well, how do I say this? I think there was a slight disconnect with some people with the film, in that if you don't understand what my intentions are with Chicago 10, and you don't understand that you're not walking into a historical documentary, you'd be gravely frustrated by the film. And so I think the reaction to Chicago 10 has been really wild. I found that there's a lot of people who sort of are hostile to the fact that there's not context in the film, which is basically the very opposite, you know, it's the antithesis of what I was trying to do with the movie, which is to create an experience. And I don't believe that having something that's experiential and something that's academic can necessarily coexist.
But why did you make that choice?
Because the history's been done so many times, Reed. I mean, the David Gribben did a documentary called American Experience called Chicago 68. There have been countless books on the 60s. There have been countless documentaries on the 60s. Everybody knows Bobby Kennedy was shot. Everyone, knows that there have been tremendous amounts of media about the convention politics. And I wasn't interested in convention politics. I was interested in the people. It's more like Howard Zinn's approach.
I just want to ask you one final question. Why did guys like you and me go to demonstrations? What's the real reason?
Why do we go to demonstrations? To
meet
raise our voice.
To meet girls.